Welcome back to my channel for a short Leica episode, and this episode will work with the Leica SL3, and I still have here the 24 to 105mm Lumix zoom lens from Panasonic mounted. You'll get my review about this lens after I had enough time to shoot it. I think it's a splendid standard zoom on the Leica SL3 so far. I really like it. But what I want to do in this video is the following. I just recently posted my tutorial on firmware 4.0.0 for the Leica SL3, the SL3S, and also for the Leica Q3 cameras. And in the Leica SL3, based on in-body image stabilization and its sensor floating freely in a magnetic field, we now have in the new firmware finally the multi-shot mode also for the Leica SL3, and not only like we had it from scratch for the Leica SL3S. The game plan for this video is pretty much straightforward. I will show you the multi-shot mode on the camera. We'll go quickly through the settings. I want to make here and there a comment because I've used multi-shot on SL cameras for quite some years already. And then I will take the camera with this 24 to 105 zoom lens out in the field and we'll shoot it. And I want to compare then single shots with multi-shots. And most importantly, I also will shoot the camera lens combination with multi-shot in the blue hour with longer exposures, which is something, if I remember correctly, was not possible with the Leica SL2 back then. And I will come back to this topic in the course of the video. Let's kick this off. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do so, subscribe, hit the notification bell, support my work. Many thanks for that. Okay, let's get this going. So if I switch on the camera, wake it up, we have the multi-shot mode under drive mode. And if I go in here, you see here it's on the second page in the menu. And in drive mode, we have single shot, we have continuous shooting. That's kind of the burst mode, and you can here choose all kinds of frames per second if you want. We have intervalometer for time lapses. I've used this many times on Leica SL cameras, works really well. And then we have exposure bracketing in the usual way. And we have now, since firmware 4.0.0, also the multi-shot mode. And if I activate this, I have settings here. And the settings are pretty much straightforward. So the first setting is the shooting mode. And I have to decide, do I want to have the camera mounted on a tripod or do I want to shoot handheld? We try this out in a moment, how it works here in the studio. For the shooting session I'm going to do after recording these video clips here, I will go in tripod mode. And the reason is I will shoot longer exposures with multi-shot mode, which is a novum on Leica SL cameras. Let me come back to that in a moment. Then we also have here the file format. I can choose, do I want to have DNGs or DNGs and large JPEGs? And then I can combine it also with MJPEGs and LJPEG only, MJPEG only, and so on. So I have chosen here typically DNG, because I don't need the JPEG file. I can preview the shot and the final frame after the camera processed it here on the LCD screen. And then for post-processing, I work with RAW files exclusively anyway. You can say here, save one single shot, or you can deactivate it. I have this always activated because what it does is, if you activate it, it gives you in addition to the in-camera processed multi-shot, which in my case, with DNG or with a large JPEG is 241 megapixel, one additional clean single shot DNG with 60 megapixels. So in case your multi-shot image is not to your liking because you have motion artifacts despite maybe activating the correction in the frame, you can always fall back to a clean DNG with 60 megapixel, and that is convenient, I think. We have a self-timer option here, 2 seconds, 12 seconds or off. I have this typically at 2 seconds. And we have, and that is very important, motion artifacts correction. And I will actually shoot landscape images where we will have motion in the scene. So I keep this on and will use the in-camera processing to hopefully hex any artifacts from motion in the scene away. But let's try out for a moment how this works if we do it handheld. If we do it handheld here, the motion artifacts correction is grayed out, and the self-timer also doesn't make a lot of sense. So let's go here and let's just try this out in the studio. Let me basically go here to 105mm focal length. Let's focus, and then let's shoot this handheld. Let's see how this works. And now the processing will start, I guess. Creation of multi-shot image failed. That is probably because I was not calm enough with my hands. Let's try this again. "16 frames. Let's see if it can process the frames. Creating, no, failed." So you see, although I have my hands resting here on the table, both arms basically here, I'm not able to do this handheld. All right, so 2 failed attempts. Let's try this differently. What I did now is I went into fully manual mode, and I opened the aperture wider to an f4 and go faster on the shutter speed to 1/200 seconds. And in order to compensate for a faster shutter speed, I beam the ISO up from 100 to 640. Let's see if we get this done now with a faster shutter speed. Let's see if the processing begins, if it is also finishing the process. This looks a bit more promising. Look at that. So faster shutter speed is always easier for me to process this with my hands, of course, and for the camera then to get the shots done. And this looks actually good. I have the impression this is working this time. Let's see if it processes to the end. And yes, here we go. And we can crop in. And this is sharp in focus and has now 240 megapixel, because that's the resolution you get. And the way how Leica achieves this is by getting the camera to shoot 16 frames, which are each and every one shifted at sub-pixel level, and then composing these 16 frames, where each frame contributes true new information into one final frame with 241 megapixel. And if you're asking the justified question, why 241 and not 240 megapixel, then the answer is simple. We have 4 times the resolution, but the effective resolution of the Leica SL3 sensor natively is 60.3, and that carries us with rounding to 241 megapixel and not 240 megapixel. Now, I mentioned already, I also want to shoot longer exposures in multi-shot mode. And if I remember correctly, but guys, correct me if I'm wrong, that was not possible back then with the Leica SL2. The Leica SL2 had a multi-shot mode, but it was constrained in terms of exposure times. If I remember correctly, you could not go longer than 1 second in terms of exposure. And here they changed it. Let me show you. I'm still in fully manual mode. I can now go here, let's say, and this will be completely overblown, but we don't care. Let's go here back to an ISO of 100, which is the base ISO. And on the shutter speed, let's go longer. And you see, I can go here up to 8 seconds. That is the maximum which the camera allows for, 8 seconds, which is much, much longer than what we had on the Leica SL2. And I'm still in multi-shot mode. You see it here. I'm still in multi-shot mode. I cannot fire now because the camera detects vibrations. And if I activated here before that I want to shoot on a tripod, it tells me that it cannot fire because the camera detected vibrations. I show you quickly. When I want to do this here, vibration detected, please use a stable base. Let's do this again for multi-shot. And the camera has sensors, of course. The sensors detect the camera is a bit shaky in my hands. And then this mode with tripod activated will not work with multi-shot. I cannot do it. But I can go up to insanely long 8-second exposures now. And I'm pretty sure, repeating myself, that was not possible before in the multi-shot mode from Leica. And I will use it. I guess I will go up to 5 seconds in my shooting on that particular location, and will try to get nice blue hour shots in multi-shot and 5-second exposures. That is at least the plan I have. Let's see if it plays out and if it works. Last but not least, a point of convenience. At least I want to quickly share it. What I will do in order to test this, I will permanently switch between single shot and multi-shot. And the menus in the Leica SL3, they are organized like a cycle. I want to show you. So if I'm here in multi-shot and want to go back to single shot, I don't have to go up here until I reach single shot. I can just go down and then it cycles and takes me back to single. And if I want to go from single to multi-shot, I basically go this way and then I'm in multi-shot. So there's no need to cross all these other drive modes here. And that is a point of convenience. All these menus are organized like a cycle. So when you basically reach the top, like single, and you push one more the joystick up, you start from the bottom again and vice versa. And that is very convenient if you switch, like I will do in the shooting later, all the time between different drive modes. I switched off the camera now and the lens cap is on the lens. I'll hop in the car now and get the shooting done. And I want to quickly share the location with you. So the location is next to a restaurant, which is in a beautiful way overseeing Lake Zurich, and in particular overseeing the causeway, which connects one side of the lake with the other side of the lake and with the beautiful small city of Rapperswil. And that causeway at the blue hour typically has huge traffic jam, so there will be lots of cars slowly moving. And if I shoot, as indicated before, 5-second exposures in the multi-shot mode, I hope in this way to catch some very nice light trails and also to see later when we go into Lightroom Classic how the camera with its in-camera processing of multi-shots was dealing with motion artifacts. All right, you saw in the clips I played the weather was really hazy. This was iPhone footage I was showing there, and it was not so easy to get good shots, but it worked. And I had to correct a little bit for straight lines here, but I want to right away compare these two frames. So let's put them side by side. And you see here on the left-hand side with a little bit of cropping based on the correction of the geometry, I ended up at 219 megapixels, so that's the multi-shot frame. And here with the same cropping at 54.6 megapixel on the right-hand side. I was shooting at f8.0, ISO 100, so base ISO at 105 millimeter on the Lumix S lens and 1/60 seconds. And you see here in the background the fog hanging a little bit between the mountains and the ground, and you saw how hazy it was. But it worked and played out. Here you see the causeway, and the causeway connects one side of the lake with the other side of the lake. Here's the beautiful city of Rapperswil, and by the way, with a beautiful castle. And you see here the big advantage, of course, on the multi-shot on the left-hand side, because you can go much deeper into the frame and it's a really clean, really clear image. The sun was shining a little bit to that side of the lake, so getting here a little bit of a reddish glow onto the village of Rapperswil, and it looks really good. It's a pretty good image, but it's not the light trails. You see here the cars, and the cars are in motion, and you see here on the left-hand side in the multi-shot, no motion artifacts. This looks actually good. You see a little bit of motion blurriness maybe from time to time, but no motion artifacts, which would come from composing 16 frames into one frame with 241 megapixel. So that looks good in my opinion, is a nice shot, catching nicely the atmosphere of that evening, and here the beautiful castle of Rapperswil. Here I turned the camera a bit for a slightly different perspective, showing you both shores at the lake, the one where I was basically taking my shots and the opposite side. And there are two islands here in Lake Zurich, and this time unfortunately the multi-shot is on the right hand side, forgive me please, and single shot is on the left hand side. But you see it immediately when I crop into 100%, look at that. Very good picture, very clean, crisp, sharp, nice colors, the atmosphere of the evening nicely captured. And you see what advantage you have if you have on the right hand side in the multi-shot the 241.3 megapixel. And you have on the left-hand side 60.3 megapixel. Of course, that is a big difference. I'm not sure whether here we see any motion. Maybe somewhere in the frame, I don't see it, but you see clearly here the resolution advantage is absolutely breathtaking. And I've shot so many cameras in multi-shot mode from all kinds of brands. Leica in this new firmware 4.0.0 is by far delivering the most superior approach because it's in-camera processing and also the image quality is absolutely fantastic. This looks really good. Let's look at the left-hand side boundary here. Look at that. This is really good. I really like what I see, and clearly the multi-shot on the right-hand side is way of superior if you need those reserves for cropping in. Okay, and this is it. This is finally the image I'm after. This is the image I wanted to try, test, achieve. It's a 5-second exposure at an aperture of f8.0, ISO 100, shot at 105 millimeter. And on the left-hand side, you see the single shot, 60.3 megapixel. On the right-hand side, the multi-shot with 241.3 megapixel. And here now, this is something which was not possible so far in the Leica world, because I mentioned this before. I believe that the SL2 in the pixel shift multi-shot mode was restricted to not more than 1 second exposures. I showed you before in the fully manual mode on the menu that we could go up here to 8 seconds, and I was shooting here with 5 seconds. And from a distance, the image on the right-hand side, the multi-shot, looks really good. I also wanted to check in this image how the motion artifacts correction is working. The camera, of course, with 5 seconds was mounted on a tripod. You cannot shoot this handheld. And what I want to do now in the next couple of minutes, digging deeper into these images and seeing what we discover. First of all, you see here the hazy weather conditions really did make not really easy for the camera to shoot. You see this band of fog or this layer of fog here, and the whole atmosphere was kind of too humid, and it was really hazy. But let's start here on the left-hand side. Let's have a look here into these buildings, and that looks really good. Look at that. And of course, you get a huge resolution advantage on the right-hand side on the multi-shot. But I think the level of details, the colors, the sharpness, contrast, micro contrast, this all looks good. And I really like what I see here. Let's look on the same side, the left-hand side boundary of the lens to the opposite side of the lake. And also here, you know, despite the hazy weather conditions, we got some nice shots here. That looks good. Of course, if we come into this band of fog, everything is becoming very difficult. You see this here. This is on both shots, and the camera can hardly handle that. By the way, here is a little tower on top of the mountain, and you see the huge resolution advantage you have on the right-hand side on the multi-shot. So this looks really good. I like it. Let's continue to go here on the bottom of the frame. Look at that. Nicely rendered. Looks really good. Like it. Looking here at the buildings. Multi-shot mode looks good. Single shot mode looks good anyway. And look now at these light trails. This looks really good. This would have been impossible in the multi-shot mode with a Fuji GFX 100 Mark II. And I have a lot of experience shooting this medium format camera in multi-shot mode because I very often need for clients super high resolution shots. And very often, you know, the Hasselblad X2D Mark II is my camera to go to with 100 megapixel natively. Or I try it with multi-shot and get up to 400 megapixel with a Fuji GFX 100 Mark II. But the Fuji would have not been able to handle these moving cars here on the causeway. Look at that. This looks really good. I'm pleased with the results. What I see here, you see a little bit of a halo here, which I think comes from the in-camera processing of the 16 frames, but it's absolutely a usable image. And again, look at this restaurant here compared to how tiny this restaurant is on the left-hand side in the single shot. Moving along the causeway, nice light trails, well done by the camera. Here you see a bit more of these, I would call it halo type artifacts here. Very likely this is the leftover, the residual of what we have from motion artifacts, but in general, the processing in camera did quite well. With the Fuji, this would look much, much worse. Here we also see a little bit of these artifacts, but not too strong. And then the causeway ends into the beautiful city of Rapperswil. And here we have, again, clarity, sharpness, and everything. It just looks good. Let's see if we find the castle. Here it is. The castle is illuminated at night, has a lot of restaurants and bars here at the waterfront. And it looks really, really good. This is by far the best result I've ever seen in a multi-shot mode on any camera from any brand with a 5-second exposure and with moving subjects in the scene like all these cars we had here on the causeway. This looks really good. I like it. And I think this is the moment in time where I should conclude my video. Drop me a comment what you think. You saw from time to time in videos on my channel the artifacts you get with moving subjects in the scene if you do the multi-shot mode on the Fuji GF X100 Mark II. And this is terrible. You cannot use these images. This image here, in my opinion, is usable and just fine, despite the fact that you have here these, what I called before, halo type artifacts just on top of the causeway. It's a beautiful picture, right? And I'm repeating myself, Switzerland is such a beautiful country. I'm so blessed that I have the privilege to live here, and these images here, they just look good. All right, that's it. That's all I wanted to say and show. I hope you liked the presentation. So in my opinion, that's my takeaway. The multi-shot mode on the Leica SL3 is one of the best market-wide implementations of multi-shot you can have, because you don't need external software. All the processing happens automatically in camera, nothing you have to contribute or to add. You can shoot up to 8 seconds exposure now in multi-shot mode, and all in, if you consider the results I just showed you in the sample images, it's absolutely fabulous image quality. If you liked that video, don't forget to drop me your thumbs up. Stay tuned on my channel. There's always more to come. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and healthy. And of course, peace out.